ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste my dear friends. This is video number 13 on Viveka Chudamani of Adi Sankaracharya. This video starts with verse number 165 and the topic is Pranamaya Kosha or vital air sheath. So, Pranamaya Kosha. Stanza 165. Karmendriyah panchadhiratoyam prano भवेत् प्राणं यस्तु कोशः येन आतं वन अन्नमयो अन्नपूर्णं प्रवर्ततस्योः सकल क्रियासु. The prana along with the five organs of action constitutes the vital air sheath provided by which the food sheath physical body performs all its activities as though it were living. The manifestation of life in the physical body, which expresses itself in the gross body as the activities of the five organs of action, is called the vital air sheath. The five organs of action are hands, feet, the organs of speech, the organ of reproduction, and the organ of evacuation. The food sheath, which was explained in the preceding verses, is completely pervaded by this vital air sheath. This is prana. There is prana in the toe as well as in the brow. If from some portion the prana is gone, that portion becomes paralyzed. Thus, this Pranamaya Kosha is the Atman of the Annamaya Kosha. Owing to the vital air sheath and its dynamism alone, all the activities of the body take place, hence the Pranamaya Kosha is considered as the soul of the Annamaya Kosha. Some textbooks consider it along with the gross and some along with the subtle body. Both are right because it is the glue which holds the subtle body with the gross body. Therefore, one part is in cohesion with the gross and the other part with the subtle body. Stanza number 166. नैवाम् अपि प्राणमयो वायुविकारो गन्ता गन्ता वायु वदन्त बहिरेषः यस्म आतं किंचा कापि न वेतिष्ठमनिष्टं स्वं वाण्यं वा किंचन नित्यं परतंत्र. The vital air sheath cannot be the self because it is a modification of air vayu. Like air, it enters the body and goes out of it, never knowing its joy or sorrows or those of others. It is ever dependent upon the self. The pranamaya kosha is a modification of air vayu. As long as it is in the body, all the activities of the body go on. But once it leaves the body, all the activities of the body stop. Since it is a modification of air and has the quality of coming in and going out, it cannot be the Atman. When this air is inside the body, it is called prana, and when it is outside, it is called the atmospheric air. Prana does not know anything, neither its own joys and sorrows, nor those of others. It cannot know anything, being inert by itself. The Atman, the Self, is eternal, all-pervasive, and omniscient. It has no modifications, no moments, and it is the knower of all. Therefore, the Pranamaya kosha cannot be the Atman. This verse is the negation of the vital air sheath. In our day-to-day living, we are not conscious of the pranamaya kosha. Next, we take up the mind for discussion. It is called the manomaya kosha. Its nature and secret technique of negating it are given in the following verses. Manomaya Kosa is given in stanza number 167 to 183. Manomaya Kosa, mental sheath. Gyanendriyani च मनश्च मनोमय स्यात् कोशो ममाहमिति वस्तु विकल्प हेतु संज्ञादि भेद कलना कलितो बलियाम सवत्पूर्वक कोश भीपूर्य विजर्भते यह. The organs of perception along with the mind form the mental sheath, which is the sole cause for the eye and mind diversity of things. It has the essential faculty of creating differences of names, etc., and it is powerful. It pervades the sheath, preceding it the vital air sheath. This opening verse on the discussion of the mental sheath explains what is meant by Manomaya Kosha in Vedanta. The mind, along with its sense centers, constitutes the mental sheath. The sense organs are in the body, but when the mind is engrossed elsewhere, we do not perceive the thing, though they are within the range of our senses. This is because the sense centers are in the mind, and if the mind is not available, no perception is possible. The sense organs by themselves cannot perceive. When the mind flows through the sense organs and reaches, say, the place where the pot is, the experience of this is a pot is generated. The theory of perception in Vedanta is that the consciousness riding on the mind as chitta flows out through the sense organs to reach the pot place, Ghatadesha, and contacts the existence sat of the pot. Thus, I become conscious of the pot. The consciousness of the pot is the knowledge of the pot. I-ness and my-ness are born in and maintained by this manomaya kosha, consisting of the sense organs and the mind. The mental sheath creates two distinctions, me and mine. Through them the mind annihilates the peace within. It destroys the inner peace by the sense of me, ahem, and the outer peace by the sense of mine, mama. Myness is nothing but the I reflected upon certain objects outside. The extension of the ego upon the world of objects around is called myness. So extension of I-ness is myness. This extension spreads to frontiers which can never be well defined. All this hallucination is caused by the manomaya kosha. Manomaya kosha is that powerful force which creates all the apparent differences in the world of pluralistic experiences. Wherever there is no plurality, there is no mind. Hence, mind alone is the cause for all plurality. The plurality of names, forms, qualities, activities, and utilities. Where the mind is not, nothing is. Manomaya kosha fully pervades the preceding kosha, that is the pranamaya kosha. Mind can only conceive things known. What I do not know, I cannot think about. The moment I get a new knowledge, it becomes a new idea to think about. In short, the present boundaries of my knowledge are the outermost frontiers to which my mind can run and pervade. Stanza number 168. पंच इंद्रिय पंच भीरेव होतृभि प्राच्यमानो विषयाध धार्या जाजवल्यमानो बहुवासनिधने Manomaya Vihati Panchamam. The five sense organs act as priests who feed the fuel of numerous desires into the mental seeth, which is the sacrificial fire. This fire, mental seeth, brings about and maintains the entire phenomenal world when it is set ablaze by the sense objects, which acts as a continuous stream of oblations. Explaining the Manomaya Kosa, Sankara gives us a metaphor from the Vedic rituals. In the Vedic period, when yagnas and yagas were performed, fire was usually invoked first. So a trough was made which was called the fire altar. In it fuel was kept and then the fire was kindled. As the fire blazed up, the priests and householders poured their offerings of ghee, etc., into it to the chanting of appropriate mantras. When into the blazing fire the offerings Ajya were poured, the flames licked higher. This picture of the yagna is very familiar to all students of ritualism, and hence Sankara uses it here to explain the Manomaya Kosa. The priests who perform the Homa are called the Hotri. The five organs of the perception represent the priest. They bring the offerings to the fire altar, Kunda. The sense objects are the offerings, Ajya, in the subjective fire altar within. The sense organs bring the sense objects in the form of sense stimuli to the individual. The eyes bring forms and colors, the ears bring sounds, the tongue brings taste, the nose brings smell, and the skin brings the sensation of touch. Thus, the sense stimuli are brought by the sense organs as their oblations into the body, which is the trough kunda serving as the fire altar. In the sacred turf, fire is already blazing, and into this the offerings are poured. The fuel for the fire are the vasanas which are already burning in the flames of thought agitations. When the offerings are poured into the already burning fire, it blazes forth to the very root of life. Agni is the Lord invoked in this ritual. When the Lord is fully invoked and manifest and blesses the priest and the householders. Here, as a result of the subjective yagna of the mind, the Lord manifests and blesses to maintain the world of pluralistic phenomena. The Manomaya Kosa is kept blazing because of the fuel of the vasanas. Into the fire, the ghee, the sense stimuli is poured by the five great priests. The sense organs, when they pour the offerings, the fire blazes forth. Thoughts are only imaginations, sankalpas of the mind expressed in the form of agitations because of its own burning vasanas. When the sense organs bring the stimuli, the mind appears to be more ablaze, that is, the agitations become more and more. These agitations manifest as activities in the world. All this is maintained by the mental seeth. Stanza number 169. नैहैत्विद्या मनसोऽतिरिक्त्या मनो हैविद्या भवबन्धहेतु तस्मिन् विनष्टे सकलं विनष्टं विजृम्भिते संसङ्कलं विजृम्भते. Apart from the mind, there is no ignorance, avidya. The mind itself is the ignorance which is the cause for the bondage of rebirth. When the mind is destroyed, everything else is destroyed. When the mind manifests, everything else manifests. All avidya put together is maya. Maya is constituted of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. These function only in the mind. Therefore, other than the mind, there is no avidya. Mind alone is avidya. It is the cause for all the bondages in the world of becoming. When this mind is destroyed, all pluralistic perception and the sense of morality, and when it is projected, the entire world gets projected. Therefore, in order to go beyond the world of becoming, the mind has to be controlled and transcended. The mind cannot be controlled unless the sense organs are controlled. The sense organs cannot be controlled unless their fields are controlled. So one should first get away from the sense objects in order to quieten the sense organs. Then, to gain a greater conviction, the seeker must study and reflect upon the scriptures. He should read, study, reflect, contemplate, and meditate deeply. When the non apprehension of reality and the consequent misapprehensions of plurality are removed, the mind becomes predominantly filled with sattva. Sattva guna pradhana. Maya is then dispelled and one comes to apprehend one's own real nature. Stanza number 170. स्वप्ने अर्थशून्ये सर्जति सशक्त्या भोक्तृधि विश्वं मन एवं सर्वं तथैव जागृतपि नो विशेष सत् सर्वं मनसो विजर्भषणम्. In the dream state, even though there is no contact with the outside world, the mind alone projects the entire dream universe of enjoyer, etc. Similarly, the waking state is no different. All this world of pluralistic phenomena is but a projection of the mind. During the dream, when there is in fact no connection with the waking world, the mind out of itself creates the dreamer, the dream world, and the dream experience. The experiencer, the experienced, and the experiencing in the dream are all created by the mind alone. The mind is the dream subject, the mind is the dream object, and the mind again is the dream experience of joy and sorrow. Similarly, in the waking state also there is no reality at all. Just as in the dream the mind creates a world of its own which has an appearance of reality, so too the apparent reality of the universe perceived in the waking world is but a hallucination. All that we see around is a projection of our mind. Stop the mind and the world ends. One may say, how about the other man seeing it? But the other man is also the perceiver's own creation only. So the mind in all of us is the cause which gives rise to the feelings and experiences of the pluralistic world. Therefore, get out, roll up the universe, carry it as a seat under your arm. Turn around, turn inside out, step into another dimension, stop the mind. Stanza number 171. Susupti kale mansi parline नैवास्ति किंचिन सकल प्रसिद्धे अतो मन कल्पित है एवं पुंसम संसार एतस्य न वस्तु अस्ति. In deep sleep, the mind is reduced to its causal state and nothing perceivable exists, as is proved by the universal experience of all people. Therefore, man's world of change is just the creation of his own mind and has no objective reality. As has been explained earlier, the mind alone is the cause for the appearance of the whole world. One more argument is added here to what has been already said. During deep sleep, when the mind is completely dissolved, the experience of the individual is that there is nothing. Such an experience is universally lived by all. Everyone under the spell of deep sleep has the same experience. There is no exception to it. Thus, when the mind is not there, there is no world perceived. So then the world of variable experiences, sansar of man, this woeful life of plurality and its sorrows is projected by man's mind alone. Consequently, this world is of the mind alone. De facto, it is not there. You are seeing the world because you are looking through your mind. Rise above the mind and look over it. World perception, then it is not possible as in the deep sleep state of consciousness. Stanza number 172. वायुना नीयते मेघः पुनस्तेनैव नीयते मनसा कल्प्यते बंधो मोक्षे तैर्नैव कल्प्यते. The wind gathers the clouds together and the wind itself scatters them. So too the mind is responsible for bondage and also for liberation. The clouds are brought together by the wind and they get scattered again by the same agency, the wind. By the mind, one considers oneself limited, mortal, and bound. When the wind brings the cloud together, the ever brilliant sun is not seen. When the mind brings the storms of its agitations into the bosom, the resplendent Atma is not readily recognized. When the agitations are reduced and the same mind is turned towards subjective realization, all the sense of limitation and bondage ends. Sankara leaves nothing unsaid which might create doubts in the immature mind of the beginner in the study of Vedanta. How the mind causes bondages and how the same mind brings about liberation is explained in the following verse. Stanza number 173. Deyadi sarvise prekalpe ragam badnadi ten purusham pasuvad gunen वैरसम्मत्रे विषम वस्तु विधाएं पश्चादेनम विमोचयति तन्मन एवं बंधात. The mind causes man's attachment for the body and the sense objects. These attachments bind him like an animal that is bound by ropes. Therefore, the same mind creates a distaste for the very same sense objects as though they were poison and liberates man from the bondage. From the standpoint of the mind, the body, the sense organs, and the objects of the world are all objects. Not only does the mind project all these, but having projected them, it creates an attachment in man for these objects. By this attachment, he gets bound and becomes limited and sorrowful. Thus, the Atman, the self apparently tied down, is the Jiva, the individuality, its freedom all gone. It lives as an abject slave of the mind on account of the attachment of objects thus created. The individual gets bound like cattle with a rope. The properties of sattva, rajas and tamas bind the individual. Though the infinite heavens invite the bird to fly free and enjoy, it does not leave the mirror in the veranda because of the attachment it has created for its own reflection in the mirror. Nobody wants to leave the object of his attachment and liking. When an animal is tied down with a rope, it has a limited freedom commensurate with the length of the rope. Similarly, when the infinite consciousness is apparently bound by the gunas, it seems to have lost its omnipotency and omnisciency and become the limited jiva. But this individuality also has a limited freedom ordered by the proportion of its gunas moods. These attachment and bondage are created by the mind alone. The same mind is useful to liberate the jiva from this bondage, that it may revert to its original nature, the pristine glory of divine omnisciency and omnipotency. After being bound to the world of objects, liberation comes to man only when he gets rid of his meaningless fascination for the sense objects. Freedom lies in not depending upon the sense objects for one's inner happiness. This dependency can be overcome only when there is a total dispassion, vairagya, for the sense objects. This passion for a thing will develop only when one finds that the object no more gives one any joy. If the idea that the joy content is not in the object outside is firmly established in one's understanding, then one is immediately released from all one's personality bondages. This dispassion, vairagya, is brought about by the mind alone. Nobody in the world has attachment for poison. Nobody longs to take a pinch of potassium cyanide. When one finds no taste rasa in an object, no more is there any attraction raga towards it. Lack of taste rasa creates desirelessness, vairagya. So by understanding that there is no real taste in the object, the mind frees us completely from the persecutions of the world of plurality. Thus, the mind alone causes bondage, and it is the mind again that liberates the individual. This play is called Maya, which is in fact our own avidya, our own non comprehension of reality. Stanza number 174. Tasma तस्मान्मनेः कारणमस्य जन्तो बन्धस्य मोक्षस्य च वादविधाने बन्धस्य हेतुर्मलिनं रजोगुणैः मोक्षस्य शुद्धं विरजत सत्तमस्कम्. Therefore, the mind is the cause for both liberation as well as bondage. When it is blemished with the effects of rajas, it causes bondage. When it is free from the rajas and tamas qualities, it paves the way to liberation. Therefore, meaning, because of the reasons explained in the above verses, it is now clear that the mind alone is the cause for bondage as well as for liberation. The feeling in man that he is bound or that he is liberated is only a state of his mind. The Atman, which is one's real nature, is never bound. Then where is the question of release for it? Liberation is only with reference to the bondage. When one is really liberated, there is neither any bondage nor any release. One is just that. The conditions of bondage and liberation are only states interpreted with reference to the conditions of the mind. Wherever it is in constant agitation, the individual is in bondage, bandhan. Rajoguna is the cause for the agitations of the mind. This Rajoguna comes into play because of Tamoguna, the non-apprehension of reality. Whenever there is in the mind a preponderance of rajas and tamas, it is agitated and therefore is in bondage. When the taints are removed and it is quietened, that is, when it becomes predominantly sattvic, one has the experience that one is free and so totally liberated. When the mind is turned inwards towards Om, it is a mind full of sattva, and when it is turned towards the OET, it is mind impure, being mixed with rajas and tamas. Both these are tricks of the mind. Stanza number 175. Vivek Vairagya Gunatireka Chudamashadde Mano Vimuktaye Bhavyatto Buddhimato Mumuksho Stabhyam Dridbhyam Bhavittavyam Magre. When the mind has been made pure due to a predominance of discrimination and dispassion, it turns towards liberation. These two must be strengthened by one who is an intelligent seeker of liberation. When there is a preponderance of these two qualities of discrimination, Viveka, and dispassion, Vairagya, in an individual, he can readily attain purity of mind. Viveka is the power to discriminate between the real and the unreal, between spirit and matter, between the self and the not self. Vairagya is the capacity and heroism to reject the unreal, the matter, the not self. In order to make the mind pure, one has to develop these two qualities. By an intelligent self denial of sense pleasures, dispassion will increase. By study, reflection, and contemplation upon the scriptures, discrimination will increase. When discriminative power is developed, it will help in increasing dispassion. When dispassion has increased, there will be a greater power of discrimination. They are both complementary to each other in their development. When the agitations in the mind are reduced, the veil over the intellect is lifted. Rajoguna and Tamoguna get eliminated. Such a mind is useful in obtaining total liberation. The mind is not the instrument with which reality is comprehended. When the pure mind is in his presence, the dissolution of individuality takes place. The pure mind here acts as a catalytic agent. That is why intelligent aspirants should strengthen these two qualities in themselves. If one is an intelligent student wanting to release oneself from the thraldom of matter, one must try to develop discrimination and dispassion in plenty. Stanza number 176. Mano nam mahavyagro vise aranyam bhumi su charyatre ne gachantu sadhvo ye mumukshuvah. A huge tiger called mind prowls in the thick jungles of sense pleasure. Let not those virtuous people who have a deep aspiration for liberation ever wander therein. For seekers who are on a pilgrimage to the temple of liberation, a warning board should be kept on their route. It should read route unsafe. Man-eater called mind at large, take to diversion here now. Here is an indication to those who do sadhana to be careful with their minds. The mind has the capacity to run out into the sense objects through some chink in the armor of self-control. Once it so escapes, it will pull you down into the jungles of sense instincts. We say Vasana and tear you to pieces. It will make you a victim of sense pleasures. Hence, sadhaks should always stick to the path of discrimination, viveka, and dispassion, vairagya. Tirelessly, ceaselessly, never relax. The moment you slip from this path, the mind will take hold of you and you will find yourself helplessly dragged into the jungles of sense objects and their endless pain-ridden enchantment. The mind is an instrument provided by the Lord, and it by its very nature must continuously run out to the sense objects. This is its essential function, to cleanse the mind of all its sensuousness is to expect the mind to live its own dharma. This is impossible, yet we as sadhaks can keep ourselves away from our blind identification with the mind and its roamings. We must meet the man-eater prowling in the deep jungle tracts, but we can avoid rushing at and embracing it. Be warned, the mind is a dangerous threat if we Identify with it. Let it be in the bosom. Be a witness to it and you are safe. Stanza number 177. Maneh parsute visyan sheshan Sathula atmana suksam taya cha bhoktuhu Sarir varnasram jati bhedat Gun kriya hetu falani nityam. The mind continuously delivers for the experiencer. Number one, all sense objects, gross or subtle, without exception. Two, distinctions based upon body, caste, order of life, and creed, as well as three, the difference of qualities, actions, motives, and results. All the sense objects without any exception are bred by the mind. It goes on creating the gross things of the world outside and the subtle things within. Not only are the objects created by the mind, but the subject, the enjoyer of objects, is also created by the mind alone. We may not be in a position to accept the statement that I and the world around me are the creations of the mind. In the dream state, the dreamer, the dream world, and the dream experience are all created by the waker's single mind. The dreamer, while dreaming, cannot appreciate and understand that the things around him and he himself, playing as the dreamer, are created by his own mind. The waking state is in no way different from this illusory dream state. Gross objects are constituted of forms and colors, sounds and tastes, smells and touch. The subtle objects consist of feelings and thoughts. In the sense objects, gross and subtle, we find innumerable varieties and endless differences, such as those based upon caste, creed, status, position in life, etc. All such differences are without an exception always created by the mind. The differences in qualities, activities, causes, and their consequences are all created by the same mind. If the mind is not there, then as in deep sleep, none of this is present. All things perceived in the dream, subtle or gross, objects or beings, thoughts or emotions, all their differences in kinds and modes. In fact, everything created in the dream is in the mind alone. So too the waking mind creates the waking world. World waking world, the individual experiencer and the endless play between them. Stanza number 178. Asang chidra mammam विमोह्य देह इंद्रिय प्राण गुणै निर्बध्य अहमेति भ्रमयत जस्रम मनः सौकृतेषु फलोपभुक्तिषु. Unattached pure intelligence is the essence of the jiva, but the mind beguiles it and binds it by the ties of body, sense organs, and pranas. It causes this jiva to wander with the idea of I and mine in the varied experiences of results gathered by itself out of the supreme reality Brahma, which is ever unattached to the matter, vestures, and the every and the very nature of which is absolute knowledge, immortal, limited. Jiva is created by the mind. The mind does this trick by first deluding itself by forget, forgetting its real nature. Having achieved this non-apprehension of reality, the mind makes man attached to the matter vestures. Thus the individual gets identified with the body, the sense organs, and all the physiological functions within him. Therefore, he gets bound by the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. This is entirely a deliberate trick of the mind. Really speaking, the Atma is never deluded, the waker is never confused. In the dream, the waker apparently becomes the dreamer. By such identifications, the qualities of the BMI are assumed to be temporarily one's own properties, and one becomes the limited ego, the jiva. This is the bondage, the limitation, the delusion. The mind perpetrates all these, and the individual starts behaving like a separate entity and suffers the sorrows of I and mine. The feeling of I-ness in the activities of the mind and the feelings of mineness in the enjoyments of the mind are delusions created by the manomaya kosha. When such a feeling arises, it announces the birth of the jiva, and this jiva, exhausted and weary, seeks its liberation. So it is this mind with which you have to remove the mind. Stanza number 179. अध्यास दो दोष पुरुष से संसरती रध्या संबंध वही मुन्नैव कल्पित रज सत्य तमो दोष वतो विवेकिनो जन्मादि दुखस्य निदानमेतत्. The evil of superimposition causes man's transmigration, and the mind alone is responsible for the bondage of superimposition. For a man who is tainted with rajas and tamas and who lacks discrimination, this causes the misery of birth, etc. The ever-changing phenomena of the world, both outside and within one's self, and its consequent joys and sorrows is called sansar. Invariably, there is inherent sorrow in the phenomenon of change. Where there is change, there is agitation, and agitation is the expression of sorrow. The root of all this is the misapprehension arising out of the non-apprehension of reality. This misapprehension, otherwise called superimposition, is termed as adhyasa in Vedanta. When the truth of a thing is not correctly seen, as it is in our error of judgment, we see another object substituted in its place. This trick of the mind is called superimposition, adhyasa, or its power of self-projection. When a rope is not seen as a rope, our error of judgment gives us the misconception that it is a snake or a streak of water or a piece of wood or a crack in the earth. When such superimposition starts, the superimposed illusion completely covers the reality. When the serpent is seen, the serpent covers the rope completely. When truth is not recognized as truth, there is no sorrow, it is only ignorance. But when ignorance breeds misapprehensions, then sorrow arises. Therefore, sorrow is not in the non-apprehension, but is inherent in the misapprehension. In deep sleep, we are in ignorance, pure non-apprehension, and there is no sorrow in it. In fact, there is much in the saying, ignorance is bliss. This theme of superimposition, adhyasa, is very exhaustively discussed by Sankara in his introduction to the Brahma Sutras. He says the phenomenon of superimposition is not one-sided. Not only is truth misapprehended as the illusion, but the illusion is firmly understood as the truth. But the illusion is not without a basis. When a rope is not seen as a rope, never do we in delusion see an elephant or a cow or a building instead of the rope. Upon a post, a ghost or a man can be superimposed, but never a cow or a snake. Hence, it is clear that although it be only a superimposition, still it strictly follows certain laws. When a snake is seen in place of rope, the illusory snake form covers the form of rope and dharmas of the snake are superimposed. The color, the shape, and the rough surface of the rope are not seen, but the color, the shape, and the smooth surface of the snake are seen instead. When these dharmas of the snake are seen, we say the snake is. The snake exists. In fact, the snake is not, and the rope is. But we say the rope is not, and the snake is. Therefore, it is not just a case of the snake lending its dharmas to the rope, but the existence in the rope is also temporarily loaned to the snake. When there is no rope, superimposition of the snake cannot be. Hence, the rope lends its existence to the snake, and the snake lends its dharmas to the rope. When we put the two of them together, we say this is a snake. This experience of the existence of the snake is the cause of sorrow. Again, if there by any superimposition, it will always be complete. A half snake, half vision, or a half ghost, half post vision is not possible. Either it is a ghost or it is a post. Even when we have a glimpse of reality, the continuance of samsara ends as ignorance completely disappears. When the mind is predominantly Rajasic and Tamasic, it will create superimpositions and will make a fool of the individual, for he will then start seeing things which are not there. Such a fool is subjected to the sorrows of samsara. They are birth, growth, disease, decay, and death. Nobody can escape them. He who has been deluded by his own superimpositions will have to undergo these sorrows. Stanza number 180. अतः प्राहर्मन विद्याम पंडिता तवत दर्शिनः ये नैव भ्राम्यते विषयम वायुनेवा ब्रह्मंडलम. Hence the mind is considered to be avidya by sages who have discovered its secret. By this alone the universe of experience is tossed around like the clouds by the mind. Because of the reasons given, the learned ones say that the mind alone is avidya. It is because of the mind that the world and its activities continue. Purposeless knocking about is Brahmana, the illusion of purposeless change. Brahmayate means moving about with no aim or goal through a series of prophecies changes. Thus the universe and its activities are knocked about by the mind just as the clouds are knocked about by the wind. This jogging along in the realm of change creates sorrows for man. Stanza number 181. Tanmane sodhanam karyam paryatanen mumukshana vishuddhe sati chetasmi mukti kram palayate. Therefore the mind must be diligently purified by one who seeks liberation. When the mind has been purified, liberation becomes as readily available as a fruit in one's own hand. From the above explanation, it is evident that for spiritual realization, the mind has to be purified. Purification of the mind means removal of Rajoguna and Tamoguna, meaning their resultant agitations and wailing from the personality. This is not an easy job because the psychological debt within has been accumulated by us all through ages past. With great effort and intelligent self-control, purification of the mind can be achieved. No effort can be consistently put in by anyone unless he has been an inspiring goal. Such an amount of effort to cleanse one's inner equipment can be put in one by one who is inspired by the goal of liberation from matter vestures. Those who have a burning desire for liberation should make at first an all-out effort to cleanse the mind that is itself spiritual ignorance. When this is done, liberation is not far away at all. It is like the fruit on your palm, already there right with you. Stanza number 182. मोक्षी शक्त्या विषयेषु रागं निर्मूल्य सन्नस्य च सर्वकरम् सदृच्छया यः सर्वनादिनिष्ठो रजस्वभावं धुनोति बुद्धि. With single-pointed devotion for liberation, he who roots out his attachments for sense objects, renounces all actions, and with faith in truth constantly hears the truth, etc., he can purge the rajasic nature of his intellect. Relinquishing both the doership and the enjoyership, one accomplishes the end of the ego. Ego, the jiva, is constituted of these two. When it is only of them, it is easier to remove the enjoyership. The I am the enjoyer attitude from the fruits of actions can be removed easily. For this selfless, dedicated services, karma yoga has been recommended. Activities without ego and egocentric desires cleanse the mind. When one works dedicatedly without the ego and the egocentric desires in the world, the existing vasanas get exhausted and no new vasanas are created. Then the mind becomes calmer and quieter the mind, greater is its contemplativeness. So one gains a deeper understanding of the scriptures. Through Shastra study, one will be able ultimately to eliminate the false vanity, I am the doer. So for a person who has cultivated single-pointedly devotion for liberation, a way has been suggested here for the purification of his mind. Dedicated activity without the ego and the egocentric desire, study of the scriptures with faith and understanding, and an intelligent removal of the vanity that arrogates all activities to itself will result in the complete elimination of the rajasic nature of the intellect. When the mind and intellect are purified, liberation is just like the fruit one's palm, one has only to enjoy. Stanza number 183. Manomaya napi bhavet pratma hayyadante vatta prinam bhiva bhavat dukhatam kva dvishhete drashta hi drashyatam taya ne drishta. The mental sheath cannot be the Supreme Self either, for it has a beginning and an end. It is subject to modifications, pain and suffering characterize it, and it is an object of cognition. The subject can never be identified with the object of knowledge. Defining and expanding the Manomaya Kosa, Sankara has used the largest number of verses, and now with this verse he denies and negates it. So many verses have been used to explain it so that the student may get a precise understanding of the Manomaya Kosha, how it works and what is its nature, structure and function. After having given explicit information about the Manomaya Kosha, the Acharya gives just 5 reasons to prove that the mental sheath also cannot be the Atma, the self. Number 1, because it has a beginning and an end. 2, it is subject to modification. 3, it is characterized by pain and sorrow. 4, it is an object of cognition. 5th, it is ever identified with the objects of knowledge. The mind has a beginning and an end. When one wakes up from sleep, the mind begins to function. When in deep sleep, it ceases to function. The Atma, the self, has neither a beginning nor an end. It is eternal and infinite. Hence, the mind, which is ephemeral and finite, cannot be the Atma. Even while it exists, the mind is fickle, ever changing. At one moment sorrowful, at another it becomes joyful, now peaceful, now agitated. This changing mind cannot be the changing Atma, whose nature is eternal bliss. The very fabric of the mind is pain and sorrow. Ever when it is joyous, its joyful nature is accompanied by the fear of change. From the standpoint of eternal bliss, our little joys and pleasures are at their best comparative sorrows. So the mind cannot be the Atma because of the obvious contradiction in its very nature. The mind is the cause for all sense objects. Since the objects constantly change, the mind too must constantly change to become the objects. The effects are nothing else but the causes in another form. The mind cannot be the Atma because the Atma is not the cause nor the effect of anything. It is the divine changeless substratum for all changes. The mind is identified with the objects. What we see around us is the seer in another form. The subject and the objects are really one and the same. When the object is projected through the mind, it appears as though it is a pluralistic world, but in fact it has no reality in as much as where the subject is not, the world of objects can never be. Through the world of objects, the mind looks at itself. The subjective subject looking at the objective subject is the experience of the world of objects, like the child sucking its own thumb and enjoying it. Remove the thumb, it cries. Remove the object, we cry. The Atma does not identify with the objects, it is the knowing principle. This being so, the mind cannot be the Atma. With this verse, the explanation and the negation of Manomaya Kosha is over. Next, we take up for discussion the intellectual seat, the Vijnanmaya Kosha. So, I complete this video at this juncture. I conclude this video. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar, my dear friend. Thank you.